Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and this week you are going to meet someone who was referred my way by podcast regular and investigative journalist and reporter, Mike Volpe of Michael Volpe Investigates. Introducing Gus Zucco, a man whose story Mike Volpe quoted as being stranger than fiction. Joining us as well, along with Gus, is his amazingly supportive wife, Hillary. Spouses are definitely the unsung heroes of these survivor stories. Gus's story adds to our plethora of stories that take place in and out of the courtroom and shows the vast corruption that takes place from the top down, targeting innocent individuals. In the words of Mike Volpe, straight from his Substack at www.michaelvolpeinvestigates.com, which I will link in the show notes for you to check out, quote, in 2007, Gus donated a kidney to his then wife, Tracy Sims. Because he wasn't a match, he donated his kidney to a stranger, which started a chain ending with Tracy getting a kidney. She was so appreciative that months later, while he was recovering, she asked for divorce. That's only the beginning of the madness. In their divorce settlement, she only received a token alimony payment, $1 per year for 5 years, unquote. In this week's episode, we're going to dive into Gus's harrowing story and his fight for justice with his case. I ask that you give him and Hillary your full attention as he walks us through this unique situation. It's important that we understand how these injustice systems work and all the ways they work against us. Gus's story has been ongoing for many years, and it's time for his voice to be heard so that he may receive the justice he deserves after so many years of suffering and healing. Before we jump into Gus's story, I wanted to give a reminder that if you are a survivor or whistleblower who wants to share your story on the podcast, or who wants to share any information privately with me, you can now email me at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com. Please send me a briefing of who you are and how I can support you, whether it's through podcasting or sharing information. All of my social media and donation links are also in the show notes. Your support across multiple platforms and financially makes a huge difference in what I'm able to accomplish with both reaching more people and having the means financially to grow this podcast. So you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming my guests of honor, voice for the voiceless, selfless advocates, and man and woman on a mission for justice once and for all, Gus and Hillary Zucco. Thank you guys so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
having
having
us.
us. Yep.
Absolutely. It's my honor. This story is definitely very unique, and it's not something, that you hear every day. And I can see why, they would bury something like this, because it's very obvious all the corruption that takes place. And obviously, when there's these two different sides to these complex stories that tend to be very biased towards a certain way, there's a bias as well as to how much information that they allow to come out and for people to hear. So I'm going to turn it over to both of you. I'd love to maybe give a little bit of background on who you are, Gus, you as well, Hillary, and then we can just dive right into the story and let people know what happened to you.
Yeah, sure. My name's Gus Zucco, and I'm originally from New York City. I've lived here in Gettysburg now for 11 years, and my wife and I, we run a historic inn here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Hi, I'm Hillary Styer. At some point I will add Zucco, but when we have a business together, so we just, and I also do acting, so I've kind of but I do want to eventually add his name. So my name is actually Styer. But so we actually met on a production for a pilot for a history museum back
In 2012. Yep.
2012.
Yeah.
So we worked together for a while and got to know each other. And so I didn't want to be interested in him. And so he, and I was taking care of everything because I was production coordinator. And one day he messaged me and asked me if, hey, do you want some coffee? And I said, no, I don't like coffee. I actually like tea. But I was just so like, oh my gosh, somebody's paying attention to me and asking me, because I'm always the one asking. I was like the mom on set. I was taking care of all the things, the paperwork and everything. So we started becoming friends and hanging out, and it just progressed from that. We
Yep.
never really had a first date or anything.
No, we
It's
didn't
kind of
actually.
funny.
Yeah.
So but what I have to say is, before we even get into the nitty-gritty of this story, we have a very strong relationship. And most recently we've went back to church. And so, because we knew we couldn't do this alone.
Yeah.
And so we have a great fellowship there. And having God in your life has actually been a game changer for me with stress and anxiety. Even though I still have it with this whole situation, it's taken some off. So it's really we're trying to be better people, even with all the stress that this story has created for us. So I don't know if many relationships could handle this that we've dealt. And once he starts talking about it, you'll understand why. But we both go to therapy now, because even if you don't have problems, I actually have a mental health degree. So even if you don't have these kind of problems that we're dealing with, it's always good to seek help, and sometimes just talking through things. But
it keeps you from turning to other things.
Turning to things, yeah. So we've really, the past couple months have really been trying to better ourselves physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Yeah.
Just to
It's been a long road with a lot of ups and downs, but
why don't you start out explaining how you and your ex met, and how kind of that whole thing transpired.
So yeah, it's in 1998 I got a job at a direct marketing company in Brewster, New York, and I was a list broker. Those are the guys that sell mailing lists to companies that are doing large mass mailings. And so I started off doing that, and then eventually I sort of focused my I sort of focused my attention towards online stuff, like specifically online universities. And I started looking into, reaching out to them, seeing what their marketing needs were. Well, long story short, I in 2001, I really did, I hit it big, and I landed a couple of huge clients. And for about 6, 7 years, I made a great amount of money. I was very, very fortunate. I also met my ex-wife, Tracy Sims, during this same period. I met her actually at the end of 1999, and we started dating in 2000. We got married in 2002, and she was along for this ride I had that, I just made for several years. I made a good amount of money. Unfortunately, Tracy also had a lot of health problems. She had diabetes, and she was diagnosed with end-stage renal failure in late 2000, and they told her at some point she would need to go on dialysis and or get a transplant. Well, that happened in 2006. She had to go on dialysis, and she was on dialysis for 15 months. And I offered to be a donor for her, but unfortunately, my blood type wasn't compatible with her. So what they did was we went to New York Presbyterian Hospital, and we got involved in what's known as a kidney swap. It's something that's been happening for several years now, in which they bring groups of people together that want to donate. Like, say you have a donor and a recipient, but neither one of them is a match. And what happens is they bring a group together. So I donated a kidney to this guy from New Jersey. Then his donor donated his kidney to a couple from Connecticut, and then that woman's husband donated to my ex-wife. So everybody got the right kidney, the right match. And in 2007, also we had my ex and I had bought a new house in Danbury, Connecticut. So when we got the transplant went well, and it took me longer to recover than her, actually, as often is the case with donors. Actually, it's kind of interesting with kidney donors. But you know, after a couple of months, you know, I was really happy because, you know, I thought to myself, all right, this is great. You know, we're finally done with this dialysis, because it was very difficult for not only her, but for me, because I was her caretaker, and you know, I was working full time, and I used to take her to dialysis every night. And, you know, then I would take her home, and it was, you know, after dialysis, it would be, sometimes she would have to, you know, eat, and she would feel weak, and I would have to help her and everything. But so I thought, as we were reaching the end of 2007 and we had both made full recoveries, I thought, you know, we're about to start our lives over again. You know, we're going to be able to go back to the way things were, you know, from a few years ago. And then instead, that holiday season, December 2007, she told me that she thought we should divorce, which I couldn't believe. I mean, we had, you know, we had our some challenges over the years, but we never ever brought up the topic of, hey, listen, I think we should get a divorce. And I was stunned because, like I said, obviously I donated a kidney, and then we had just bought a new house, and I was thinking, like, why would you want to get a divorce now? But anyways, it was kind of odd then. So for the next couple of years, we when she said this to me, I was like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do here? I'm not going to go anywhere. I have nowhere to go. I just, you know, so for essentially the next 4 years, we were like roommates. So 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, we were just basically cohabitating in the same house. And then 2012 is when I got involved in a number of things down here in Gettysburg, namely the television show and another investment in Elvis Presley collection, which Mike documents actually in his story. So then what happened was I think it was around August or September of 2012, Tracy officially filed for divorce. So what happened was when we the television show that I mentioned and the Elvis collection. So throughout the duration of our marriage, I was the principal income earner. In fact, Tracy never worked in all the years that we were together. So I made all the money, and Tracy did not ever pay attention to our finances. She didn't. She really didn't care about. You know, she knew that we had a nice house. She knew that she had cars. You know, she didn't have to really worry about anything. So, anyways, she knew that there was really nothing to worry about. We had plenty of money, and I took care of everything. Now, that also meant I took care of investments. So I was investing in stocks, bonds, municipal funds, a lot of things that were highly speculative, some stocks that were, you know, that were kind of speculative. And at the end of the day, Tracy never asked any questions. She never cared. She really didn't, frankly. So in 2012, these two opportunities came up, and I took the time. I took the opportunity to go for it. I felt that they both had enough potential that I could make some good money for us. So I agreed to invest in both of them, and I didn't tell Tracy about it. So that by the time the divorce was moving along, then, you know, when the discoveries came out and, you know, we had to disclose everything. Well, then at that time, I disclosed that I had invested in these two things. And unfortunately, they were about $490,000 in the red at that point. Now, the monies that I used to invest in these, incidentally, were they came from a line of credit that Tracy and I mutually opened in 2009. That was never brought to the court's attention, never, because I had a horrendous attorney, Eva DeFranco, who I, you know, eventually sued for malpractice and won. But so the interesting thing is, the first thing, though, when I did, you know, divulge that I had invested in these two things, the first thing that Randolph Richardson, Tracy's attorney, first thing he wanted to know was that he wanted to know what the status was with these investments. Now, obviously, what do you think? You know, why do you think he wanted to know that? Because if I disclosed that the show was about to be sold for $1 million, which is what we had hoped would happen, then he would have had his hand out for his client. You know, but of course, when I divulged that both of the investments were in the red, his position was, well, my client never knew about this, so she shouldn't be liable for any of the monies. So I was opposed to that, and it was kind of funny because Eva DeFranco, who was supposed to be my attorney, was seemed to be more on the side of my ex-wife, incredibly. Well, I later found out then that she of course also was really good friends with him, with Randolph Richardson. So that kind of made sense. But so needless to say, I was just eager to get on with my life down here in Pennsylvania. The divorce dragged on for close to a year and a half. And I just was done with it. There were new things that I wanted to get involved in down here, and I just said, all right, fine. You know what? I'll assume the entire debt. And I was given 6 years to pay it off. So I just figured, all right, well, I'll figure out how to pay it off, but I got to end this divorce once and for all and start my life down here in Pennsylvania. So that's what I did. The divorce was finalized in January of 2014. And then Hillary and I actually we married in later in the year in 2014, and I have 2 wonderful stepkids now. I became a dad for the first time. I never thought I would be a dad, and it was a wonderful, and it has still been a wonderful experience. And I started building my life down here. Well, everything was going great, I thought, until December of 2015. When one day I got in the mail a notice that I was being sued by Tracy for 2 things. For basically for I was in violation of the divorce decree, and also for a modification of alimony. Now, the interesting thing is, when we divorced, as I mentioned earlier, I made a tremendous amount of money. When we divorced, Tracy got about $1 million settlement. And also, I should let everybody know, we didn't have any children. There weren't any kids to take care of. So she got a $1 million settlement. She got a house worth about $500,000 that was free and clear, no mortgage on it. And she got, and then she got about another 2 cars. She got half of my IRA, and then a lot of liquid securities with Morgan Stanley. So totaled about $1 million, maybe a little more than $1 million. So there was the alimony aspect. There was a clause put in, a very sneaky clause of $1 a year alimony for 5.5 years, which seems ridiculous. But I later learned it's a very sneaky lawyer trick, because basically what it is that if I were to have some massive financial success, then she would still, essentially keeps the specter of alimony alive. So if I were to have some massive financial success, she would still be able to come after me and and get some money. So as I mentioned, my attorney who represented me did a horrible job, and the reason why she sued me for breach of the divorce decree is I was supposed to be making monthly payments, and I didn't make them. In my head, I thought I had until January of 2020 to pay her half of this $490,000 off. I'll eventually figure it out. And I guess, I'm a procrastinator by nature anyways. But yeah, that's, yes, but that's, essentially what was happening. So, and then, it's funny, just to illustrate how little my ex-wife paid attention to anything financial. This is what's funny. The divorce it was finalized in January of 2014. I didn't get served with any kind of legal action till almost 2 years later, till December of 2015. So that means she didn't even realize that the loan, I later found out I was supposed to be making monthly payments, and she didn't even realize that I wasn't making monthly payments for nearly 2 years. That just goes to show you how little she paid attention. See, which is what illustrates what I said earlier. She never cared about anything. Quite frankly, she couldn't be bothered. She was the type of person that I had to handle everything. And when we were married, it was ridiculous. I did everything. I'll tell you a funny thing. When I met Hillary, and one of the things, she had 2 kids, and she remarked how good I was with her children. And I said to her, well, I guess it comes naturally because I've been like a dad to my ex-wife for 10 years. I mean, really, it was ridiculous. I was like her dad. She was helpless. She did nothing. Everything needed to be done for her. So anyways, in December of 2015, then, I got hit with this notice. And unfortunately, then for 2016, 2017, 2018, I was paying this debt down. And in the interim, I also accumulated massive legal bills. And it just got to the point where by February of 2019, I had no choice, but we both actually filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy. By this time, I had paid the debt down. And remember, I still had my portion of the debt as well, and I had other expenses and other things. And obviously, we have kids, we have a lot of things on our plate. So the stress of the legal bills alone are over $100,000, and on top of that, I paid it from 245 down to 106. But our finances had reached basically their breaking point by early 2019. And by that point, I couldn't even afford an attorney anymore. I was just representing myself.
Mhm.
So in February of 2019, I had no choice. I talked to a few people, I spoke to a few attorneys, and they all suggested, you know what, just the only thing left you can do is file for bankruptcy. So that's what we did. We filed for bankruptcy. So then that summer, in the summer of 2019, we went before the bankruptcy court in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and the bankruptcy judge he discharged actually the remaining $106,000 that I owed my ex-wife, because my ex-wife came forward as a creditor, as did, dozens of others, credit cards, etc. So the bankruptcy judge dismissed it. However, because my ex-wife tricked the court into thinking that she was destitute. They tricked the court into thinking she was destitute. Didn't really lead on to the fact that she had been left about $1 million. The bankruptcy court agreed to let her continue to pursue me for just alimony. And here's the thing, with alimony, I wasn't concerned, because, I said to myself, oh, well, whatever, alimony, that's no big deal. Because I knew alimony was about support, so I thought to myself, well, here's somebody who got $1 million settlement. We didn't have any children. What could they possibly give her in alimony? Maybe $100 a month for a year or something. I just didn't think it wasn't. So the reason, that's important then is there was that fall then, December of 2019, in late December 19, there was a hearing scheduled, then it got postponed, and then there was another one then scheduled for December 5th of 2019. And as I mentioned, I couldn't afford an attorney. So I was supposed to go up to Danbury, Connecticut for this alimony hearing. Well, unfortunately, about a week earlier, Hillary's grandfather, her 92-year-old grandfather, passed away. And 2019 was a particularly horrible year, because in March of that same year, her father unexpectedly passed away. So the services for Hillary's grandfather were in Huntington, Pennsylvania, which is about 2 hours or so west of here, which is Gettysburg. It's central PA, and Gettysburg itself is about 5 hours from Danbury, from the courthouse. So I put in a bereavement continuance. I asked for, which was reasonable, which is everybody, it's always allowed. In a job, it's always, allowed. So, and just so that they didn't think I was making up some story, like some high school story about grandma died, I put forth the obituary, and I put forth the first page, which listed my name. It had my name listed as her husband. So, this way they could see I'm not lying. Well, the lovely Randolph Richardson, who represented Tracy, he had the audacity to produce the other part of the obituary, which showed that the services were December 4th instead of December 5th. And he argued that, oh, well, there's no reason he can't come. It's the day before. And of course, Judge Trulia, now who Michael Volpe is very fond of, he of course agreed with him. And he said, yeah, the guy's got to go to court. So I basically said, you know what? No, I'm not doing this. I'm not, because I would have had to sacrifice going to the services. And we were there literally all day. We didn't get back home to Gettysburg till late that evening. And I suppose I would have had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to be at court. So essentially I would have had to stay up in order for me to do this, I would have had to stay up all night or get an hour of sleep. And I just didn't think that was worth it to do that. And I was not going to miss the services. So what I tried to do was I tried to find an attorney to represent me to basically be there in my absence on December 5th. In fact, it was kind of embarrassing because while we were at the services all day long, I was ducking out intermittently, making phone calls and trying to find somebody that would go and represent me. Unfortunately, I just couldn't afford anyone. And so at the end of the day, I said, you know what? There's nothing I can do. It's just alimony. There's nothing to worry about. What are they going to give her? They can't really give her much because she doesn't have any needs. We don't have any children. So I'm just gonna so obviously the hearing came and went. And then I eventually did hire an attorney. His name was Doug Lewis. I was able to afford him. And he went to court later in the month of December for something, to file something for me. And then in February of 2020, he also went to court. And he also went to with Richardson was there, and they had a hearing, some hearing before Judge Truly, another hearing, and then nothing happened for several months because then COVID hit. That was March of 2020. So then in July of 2020, in the middle of of this pandemic, which brought the whole world to a stop, our business had shut down. We have a small inn here. We had no business for months. Judge Trulia hits me with a retroactive alimony award of $2,000 a month from July of 2020 going back to December of 2015 when the action commenced. So that totaled $110,000. Then on top of that, he hit me with a $2,000 a month alimony award every month indefinitely, potentially for the rest of my life. So I was beyond shocked. In fact, I mentioned this in Michael's interview, but I called my attorney, Doug Lewis, and he literally said, "Wow, who did you piss off?" I mean, that was literally the first thing he said to me when I called him. He couldn't believe it. So what we did then was I said, "Well, what do we do?" And he said, "Well, we do two things. We put in a motion to re-argue, and then I guess we got to talk about getting an appeal going." So we put in a motion to re-argue. And interestingly enough, we did it within the allotted time frame, and it was denied then a few months later. But what I did it in like July 29th, and I didn't get the denial until like November. Apparently he had ruled on it in August, but I didn't know that it was denied until November. So then the next month, Doug Lewis actually became ill, so he could no longer represent me as an attorney. And he recommended attorney David DeRosa, who's my current attorney. So I talked to David, and David then said two things. He said, "Yep, we're going to get the appeal going. We're going to do that. And then we're going to do a motion for modification of alimony." But just going back to the thing about Trulia and what he did with denying me the opportunity to re-argue, he hit me with that kind of an award. He gave my and he didn't even give me the dignity to speak my piece and say, "Hey, look, no, wait a minute, this is what happened here. This is," he just denied it. So anyways, we got so attorney DeRosa said, "All right, well, like I said, we have to start the appeal, and then we have to get a motion to
and you got the transcripts.
we have to get a motion to for modification." So then the next thing he said is, "But we also have to see the transcripts of that hearing that you missed to see what transpired at that hearing." So when I got the transcript and I read it, now this is where the fun begins. So then it made sense, because for several months I was thinking, how in the hell did this guy ever come up with this number? How did he think that I could do this? Well, when we read the transcripts, there were two crucial errors that were stated at the hearing. And first off, by the way, and attorney DeRosa was just laughing when he read because he said the witness, Tracy, my ex-wife, was just being led. Like in court cases, they say leading the witness. Well, that's what he was doing. He was just telling her what to say. And since there was nobody there representing me, it just went on. So this lunacy went on. So he actually says in the context of the hearing, he gets Tracy to admit that she had no claim, that to any of Hillary's money. He said, you do know that Hillary is Gus's new wife, and any income that she has, you have no claim to it, correct? And Tracy admits on the record, yeah, I have no claim to it. But then he says, but if you look at Mr. Zucco's own bankruptcy schedule, his filing schedule, because when we did bankruptcy, I was debtor A, Hillary was debtor B. He said, you can see that, Mr. Zucco, because we had all the income and the debts, etc. Basically, he said, you can see that Mr. Zucco earns all the money because all of the income was attributed to me as debtor A. And for Hillary, the only income that was attributed to her was the child support that she gets from her ex. That was a mistake that was made by the attorney's office here in Gettysburg when we filed for bankruptcy. So basically, he said to the court, yeah, Tracy has no claim to any of it, but look, Hillary doesn't have any money. It's all Gus's money. So that was mistake number one. Then mistake number two, then he said, and look, Your Honor, you can see Mr. Zucco's own admission, after he's paid his debts and everything, he has $2,261 every month left over. So that means that he can give my client $2,000 a month. And then he said something smug. He was like, and he can still have a few $100s left over to go gambling at the casino with or something. Yeah. He essentially, he thought it was funny. Now that was mistake number two, because we have what's known as a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. It's not a Chapter 7 where they dismiss everything, and you have to prove to the court that you have sufficient income to make a monthly payment for a period of time, at which point then they allow you to keep your business and your home. So the $2,261, that was not what we had left over. The monthly payment was $2,000.
Actually, $2,200.
Yeah, it's since been increased to $2,200. Yeah, but at the time, the monthly pay, it was $2,000. So that was mistake number two. Wait, I didn't have an extra $2,000 hanging around. It's because I had the bankruptcy payment, and of course, Richardson knew this. He's not an idiot. He's been a lawyer for many years. But when there was nobody around to defend it, and it's funny just going back on that, just to give these lawyers in these family cases are just slime. I mean, what he did the year before, in the last time I was in court in January of 2019, because I had a Morgan Stanley account as well, and this time I was actually in the courthouse. And he made in 2018, I had about $267,000 in it. So I had to liquidate that account. I basically, and because I just had so many bills, I liquidated it. But I owed $205,000 on my own line of credit that I still owed. So what I did was I liquidated it. Morgan Stanley paid their loan off, and they gave me the proceeds. So they gave me I got like about $63,000. So you know what Richardson said to the court? Richardson said that he said to the judge that I liquidated. Thank you. He said to the judge that I liquidated the account, and that I had all the money in my hands, and instead of paying off my ex-wife, which I was obligated by the court to do, I chose to pay my loan off instead. That's an absolute blatant lie. What it is like, it's like when you sell a house, okay? If you have a house that sells for $500,000, okay, when you go to the closing, you don't get $500,000 in your hands to just do what you want. They look at everything, and let's say you have a mortgage, first mortgage for $200,000, a second mortgage for $100,000, outstanding water bills. They pay all of that off, and you get what's left. It's the same thing that happened to me with Morgan Stanley. But according to Rick Richardson there, I had all the money, and I could have done the right thing, and instead I kept it and paid off and of course, though, I was there to correct myself. I mean, I was there to correct him and to basically explain, no, Your Honor, let me explain, this is the way it works. I never had my hands on all that money. I got 60, and ironically, of that 62,000 or so that I got, half of it went to Richardson's legal fees. So basically, now with regards to, with the errors, when we saw that these errors had occurred, getting back to, what I was saying about the two mistakes, well, then Attorney DeRosa, my current attorney, he said, well, what we have to do is we have to, correct the mistake from the Gettysburg, from your bankruptcy attorney in Gettysburg. And then when we go to court for the modification hearing, well, we have to, show the judge and show them, listen, there's two mistakes here. This never should have happened. So, and at the meantime, we kept the appeal going. So in November of in the meantime, though, actually in September of 2020, Tracy retained the lovely Heather Roberts down here, who has a reputation as the meanest attorney in town here. She retained her to go after me down here in Gettysburg. And then I found an attorney that I could afford, and there was there was a number of court appearances. I paid small amounts, but honestly, I was struggling to pay this amount. It was a lot of money, $2,000 a month. And I was, in the meantime, the hearing was, we were waiting on the motion for modification hearing, and then we also had the appeal that was ongoing. So in November then of 2021, I went up to Danbury, and I had a hearing on, I think it was November 5th, I think, or 4th. So I went there armed with everything, and Tracy Sims, my ex-wife, she represented herself. And
just to add, the bankruptcy attorney that we have did do a sheet that properly divided the income of the business that we work together.
Yeah, he made the correction,
and even has an email stating, I fixed this situation.
Yeah, we went into court armed with that. We had fixed the situation, so we went there prepared to address everything. So Sims represented herself, my ex-wife Tracy Sims. So at that hearing was Carla Nascimento, who was a new judge, and the hearing went on for several hours. And the interesting thing was, throughout the duration of that hearing, I'd say that Carla Nascimento barely said more than a few sentences. It was funny, actually. When one of my previous conversations with Michael, I said, you almost could have had, like, during COVID, when they had all those cardboard cutouts in sports arenas, you might as well have had a cardboard cutout judge in the seat, because she literally did nothing. I mean, she contributed nothing. I mean, she said none of the things that were said, she commented on. When we explained the mistakes, she didn't say a thing. And interestingly enough, with when Sims was put on the stand, she literally perjured herself on the spot. She actually said that meanwhile we had documents. I was still getting her statements from Morgan Stanley for several years. And I had one that was as recent as October of 2021, and it showed at just one of her accounts, she had $217,000 in this account. Now, when questioned about that account, Sims said it wasn't her account. And she said, even though it had her name on it, her address, she literally said 4 times, that's not my account, that's not my account. And Judge Nascimento said nothing. And then it gets even funnier. So she went on to say then later that she was getting behind in seeing her doctors for her transplants. And when my attorney asked her why, she said that I can't afford the gas money. Now, I know gas has gone up, but $217,000. But the funny thing about that is, again, Judge Nascimento said nothing. Now, the reason I mention that is because to tell you how nasty they were with me. I once said in a courtroom in Danbury courts to another judge, to Judge Winslow, I believe. I said to her that I was just confused by the divorce decree. I made a mistake, and that's why I didn't pay. And you know what she said to me? She said, "You're not a moron, are you?" That's what she said to me. All I said was, "Hey, listen, maybe I got confused. I'm sorry. I apologize." But meanwhile, Sims could say, we proved on paper she had a net worth of $800,000. We proved that. And she literally made a comment like, I don't have money to buy gas for my car. And the judge said nothing.
Nope.
Well, anyways, I left there. We made our Attorney DeRosa did a great job. We made our case perfectly. I left there thinking that I was going to get relief there. Well, 5 days later, she denied the whole thing in its entirety without even an explanation.
Just basically there was no proof of burden on this,
Yeah.
and so nothing was changed.
It was 2 sentences essentially stating that I didn't meet the burden of proof, and basically, nope, sorry. Now this is where it gets more interesting now with the Trulia and Nascimento conspiracy here, because what I thought and what Attorney DeRosa thought was that, well, Judge Trulia was the senior judge, and interestingly enough, by the way, Judge Nascimento is a younger, attractive woman, and we think my attorney and I thought that, and we had a suspicion that Trulia had a thing for her. And it's funny, then when I found out Trulia's penchant for like young women, you know, he's apparently he's got a reputation for being a bit of a pervert. That made sense, but it sounded like Trulia coached her before she went on the bench, you know, for in my case, and said, listen, just let this guy talk and then just deny it in its entirety. Well, that's what she did. And then when we filed a motion to re-argue her decision, which was she didn't really give us any substance, guess who denied it? Trulia denied it. Trulia, who number one, he didn't preside over the hearing, but then number two, he wasn't even in the district anymore. He had since been transferred to Bridgeport. So why would he deny it? And in fact, when I called the clerk in Danbury Court, and I asked them, I said, you know, how is it that this judge, why would Trulia deny this thing? I said, why would he deny it? You know, he didn't preside, and they literally said, I don't know what to tell you. They said, I'll get back to you.
They never did.
The main clerk over there, Neil Brown, he's the case flow coordinator. He literally said, I don't know. He said, I'll get back to you. So anyways, now we're into 2022, and we actually got another hearing then, another hearing last June, a little over a year ago. And this one was another, basically, it was supposed to be she was supposed to articulate her decision. Nascimento was supposed to, and this was a Zoom hearing. And interestingly enough, Sims claimed that she had a cancer diagnosis, and that's why she had a remote hearing, which was nonsense.
She brought Rick Richardson back as her attorney.
Yeah, so. and Attorney Richardson represented her, and again, you know, we put forth all the evidence. And that's where Richardson said that I had dirty hands. Yeah, he said I had dirty hands. And he claimed that I had all these allegations of things I did with, when we were married. But anyways, long story short, again, Nascimento denied everything. Again, this time, instead of 2-3 sentences, it was 2-3 pages, but it was just literally nothing. It was nothing of substance. Like she talked about the case matters.
It was like a lot of fluff words.
Yeah, it was like she talked about, how long we had been married and we got divorced. It was no substance. And then in August of last year, I found out that my appeal was denied. Now, so we're talking about two hearings and a 3-judge panel appellate board, and everything was denied. And here's the interesting thing about it. Those 2 mistakes that I mentioned,
not even addressed. They
were never even addressed. It's not like they even tried to explain them away. They were just simply ignored. Mm-hmm. I mean, the appellate board, they wrote a long opinion, but they never addressed it. It would be as if there's a criminal case and there's the deadly firearm had the fingerprints of another person, not the person who's in jail, and they just ignored it. I mean, I literally feel with this thing, it's like I'm in jail and there's evidence that came up that shows I'm innocent, and they just don't want to hear that evidence.
Well,
so
even on top of that all, so Tracy wrote her own appeal, and if you want some entertainment, I can send it to you. It was
there's 5th graders that would have done a better job.
This is horrible, yeah. But our son, who's 17, is very smart, and so we're like, here, have a red pen, and here's the appeal. And he got through the first page, and he's like, I can't even read this anymore.
Yeah.
It was that bad. And what's funny is they really, the appeal board really kind of, excuse my language, shit all over DeRosa's appeal. Never said a word about her and all the errors and how she couldn't even spell
it was,
correctly.
if you, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
If you look at Sims, because DeRosa did the appeal, and mind you, this is a 20-year appellate professional. He's a good lawyer. He's done a lot. I mean, he's an appellate lawyer.
Yeah.
This is what he does. And his response was thorough, thought out, and had all the two mistakes that occurred.
Mhm.
What's the explanation for that? And if you read Sims, and then Sims has a response to his appeal, I kid you not. There's third graders, fourth graders that would have done a better job.
Just not
And,
articulating,
I
couldn't
mean,
spell,
it
didn't
was
have the
broken
facts right.
sentences,
Yeah.
fragment sentences. Like it's just nonsense. And again, nothing. So basically, where we are today is I have had to I've had to basically borrow money. I've borrowed so much money from my mother. It's embarrassing, but I've had to pay the $2,000 a month. It has brought us to our knees financially, and it's potentially jeopardizing our son going to college this fall.
Mhm.
And on top of that, now I just was recently ordered to pay the lump sum of $110,000 by July 31st. And if not, I'll be in contempt
And you'll go to jail.
and I'll go to jail. So if I don't pay right now, the reason I have to pay this every month is Sims wants me to go to jail. And she is salivating at the prospect of me going to jail. She wants me to go to jail. She wants to punish me, and for something that I guess I did, for something I'm guilty of. And the interesting thing about it is that Sims is the one that initiated the divorce. When I told you, going back to 2007, she's the one that wanted to divorce me. But she's such a narcissist that she couldn't handle the fact that I got remarried. That's what's been fueling this rage.
And he found out from some friends of, and they said that she was just so irate that how dare he move on with his life and get married.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So now the problem with the alimony is half of that's was based on my income. So that had put me into bankruptcy. And a side note that he didn't get to is she found a way to get his bankruptcy dismissed.
Oh yeah.
Now I'm still in bankruptcy. We're still paying the exact same amount that we're paying. So we're still paying $2,200 a month.
Oh
and then we're also being made to pay the $2,000 to her. Also, because he was late because of the mail just being a pain, they also threw legal fees on him. And now down here,
I just got ordered to pay
July 1,050, July 17th, no, 15th.
There's the deposition. I got sacked with I was late on my payment in February, and I got sacked with $1,000 legal bill. The judge down here is on her side as well. And now we've been hearing, I'm trying to get a story here in the Gettysburg Times about Judge Christina Simpson.
Because there's a bias.
She's clearly, I've been hearing I've met several other men here in town that have been railroaded by her also. And I've talked to certain people who said there's a bias. She has a bias against men here, because this is ridiculous. I mean, what's happening to me is I've gone before this judge. You know what it's like? It's like I'm paraplegic. I'm sitting in a wheelchair. Okay, I can't. I'm a paraplegic, and this judge is saying to me, "You have to get up and walk 10 steps." And I'm like, "What? Look, I'm in a wheelchair. You have to do it." And I'm like, "I'm in a wheelchair." And then the judge says, "Well, I'm sorry, if you don't do it, you're going to go to jail."
Well, part of the problem right now and down in Gettysburg is the fact of the matter is the judge the whole time has been, all we're doing is enforcing the alimony order from Connecticut. So so now what's happening is they're forcing him, it's not the judge, her attorney sent in to do a deposition, and he's supposed to go to her office with 2017 on taxes and any settlements with our HJE business, which Tracy Sims signed off prior to them getting divorced because she allowed him to buy a property, but the mortgage company wouldn't let him do it until she signed off rights. She's now saying she didn't sign off rights to the HGAE LLC.
Yeah, she's denying that.
And now and so what I don't understand is Why are they asking for all these taxes if the judge keeps saying, I'm only enforcing the award? I don't care if you have it or not. That's not my problem. It's like Gus could get down and rob a bank and come back with the money. She wouldn't care.
Yeah, I mean, it's so ridiculous that I almost think I could have said to the judge a few times, hey, listen, you mind if you just give me 20 minutes? I'll run down the street to the corner bank there and I'll come back with the money. I really think she would have been like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. You have to come up with it. I mean, it's absurd.
And
How am I expected? And she just does not. And there's definitely a thing called judge's discretion. She doesn't have to do this. This judge down here, she's doing it for some
the
reason.
problem is Tracy is relentless and wants to keep pushing
Yeah.
this subject. And what's insane about all this is that the amount of money that we're supposed to be paying her a month, which is $2,000. I have a great relationship with my ex. We have 2 kids. My ex works at Princeton, and literally, my daughter's 26 and my son's 17, and the child support that I get is a fourth of what she is getting. And have you ever met a 17-year-old? They eat a lot and they grow.
Yeah.
Kids are expensive, no matter what. Yeah.
And so what's happening now is we did get a little bit. He's going to Gettysburg College in the fall, which I'm very grateful. And my ex and we were all working together, but there's a small thing left for the tuition. I can't even be a co-signer because I'm in bankruptcy because of this whole situation. And every month when I have to give, we have to give 2,000. 1,000 of that is technically my money. But the court doesn't care. The court doesn't want to talk to me because I'm not part of it. They just want my money and they just want to say, shut up, pay the $1,000. And we've had some arguments about this. And he's like, well, they're not forcing me, but they are to a degree, because what happens if he doesn't pay it? He will go to jail. I will have to take care of everything. We have a business to run. We have a 17-year-old. Yes, he's going to college, but we also have animals that have special needs. And so I would have to be in charge and take care of every single aspect. And it's like,
Yeah, we both, we work together, and it's
but the court won't let me say a word.
So yeah, because what the unfortunate thing about it is that they have created a situation where, yeah, they can't, they legally can't take anything, because I have everything that if I went back into the workforce and I started earning, a salary in my name alone, then if I became a W-2 employee again, then they could take that money. But legally, they can't touch anything because Hillary has no liability in this matter. Only I do. But basically, they've created a situation whereas, well, if you don't pay it, you're gonna go, you're gonna go to jail. That's basically what it comes down to. So,
so basically, they're taking money away from me to take care of a minor.
Yeah, and what's really sad is that this judge here, Judge Simpson here in Gettysburg, she professed to be all about the interests of the children and everything, and meanwhile, she's bending over backwards to give this 50-year-old woman who does nothing, who doesn't want to work.
Well, she says she's immune compromised. Yeah. Now, here's the interesting thing. We talked to somebody that saw her at a nail salon getting her nails done. If you're immune compromised, that's the worst thing to be doing, is having all that, whatever they have. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a clean place, but so basically,
fumes, those would be horrible for somebody that's going through that.
Yeah, but she is not immune compromised. In fact, we have family members that are diabetic. One of my family members has sarcoidosis, and they work.
Yeah.
And it's so having to pay $4,200 every month, and we run a historic inn in a town that's a tourist town, and there are months that are very lean. And what's interesting about it is I think it was in it was in one of the stories or interview. So when the COVID hit, we couldn't get help because we were in bankruptcy. Now, if I had a criminal record, I would have been able to get help, but we were not able to we got a little bit of something, but that didn't even come close to the bills and everything. And then our bank gave us 3 months
You literally
Like-
could have a felony record
Yeah.
and you'd be eligible for government assistance. But since we were in bankruptcy, we weren't eligible for a dime.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and it was like just the fact that this judge gave this award during COVID. In fact, we had a couple family members pass. One of my best friends passed from COVID. My best friend's mom also passed from COVID. And it was like, where are we, and we're okay now, but you catch a, the recession and everything like that that's going on. If people stop traveling, they would still expect us to pay
Yeah, I
it.
mean, there's just,
I mean, they don't care. It's almost like, how did I explain this the other day? If I made $2,000 a month and they say, oh, you have to pay 1,900. They can't, like, if you had a job not being self-employed, they can't garnish your wage to leave you 100 a month. But essentially that's what we're doing.
well,
They're doing to
yeah,
us.
they're basically, it's just like if there's there's a guy that has has to pay child support and he has 3 kids or whatever. If he makes $50,000 a year, they can't make him pay 60,000. They can only they have to look at his income and they have to allot a certain amount so that he can still survive. And what's left over, then that's what he pays. But I mean, this is insanity. I mean, I've said this to this judge. I've said, I cannot pay this. And she says to me, I don't know what to tell you. There's an order in Connecticut and I have to follow it. And that's not true, because at the end of the day, I've talked to lawyers about, my lawyer in Connecticut told me there's a thing called judge's discretion. You can look, you don't have to, she doesn't have to, she's forcing me for some reason.
The problem is Tracy is just wants
this
to
is
make him pay.
This is what she lives
and
for.
A little backstory is when Tracy was younger, her dad left.
Yeah.
And her mom is a man hater, and she's her biggest cheerleader. And every time she's there, and I wasn't here, but Gus had told me when they were in a hospital after the surgery with the kidney, Tracy wasn't doing the best, but she wanted to go home. And the doctor was like kind of suggesting maybe not yet.
They were concerned about some of her numbers in the days following the transplant. And she literally was screaming. She threw one of the doctors out of the room and she wanted to go home. And her mother was egging her on. Basically saying, yeah, you can do this, Tracy. The two of them are just nuts.
But even her mindset. So one of Gus's good friends said, oh, you must be, really grateful, that he did this. And her attitude was, well, I deserved it. That's her attitude. Like, I personally can't imagine, like, if someone would have given me an organ to help me live, I would be so grateful. I mean, I'm grateful that he's my husband and what he did for somebody, because the person that got his kidney wasn't her. And the sad thing about the whole story is the two people they had got the other kidneys, they have both passed. They both had children, some had grandchildren, but the one, the guy that he gave the kidney to, we actually connected with his daughter, and they actually reconnected and had 5 more years because they were estranged for a while. So there was 5 years that they were able to become closer, and she was so grateful for that. And so it's kind of like, I'm grateful that he was able to do that, but it's like, that's a selfless act. Surgery is surgery. Like, I was just reading a thing the other day that this little girl had a tonsillectomy and passed 7 because there was an unexpected bleeding. And so you never know, like, surgery is surgery.
Wow,
so
just surgery, an organ that you donated to somebody that you loved, and that you cared about. And there was multiple people. That's the other thing. How do you not be grateful that 3 people literally stepped up and, and contributed to her health?
Yeah, the sad thing about it is that, like Hillary said, of the 3 recipients, 2 of the 3 have since passed. The gentleman I donated to, he passed in 2012, so he got 5 more years. And then the other woman, she passed in 2014, so she got 7 more years. And both of them had children, and Paul, the gentleman I donated to, he had grandchildren as well. And Tracy, my ex-wife, is the only one who's still alive, and she's doing great. And this is what she's chosen to do with her life. She got
Well-
not only did she get a first lease, she got a second lease because a year later she got a pancreas transplant, which ended her diabetes. And so she was only able to get a pancreas transplant because she got the kidney transplant first. And this is what she's made her life's
Well,
mission.
even in
Persecuting me, somebody who literally saved her life.
even in court, when Attorney DeRosa said, didn't Gus
yeah.
donate a kidney? And she goes, no, I have Kwok Ang's kidney. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but Gus gave a kidney to make that happen because Kwok Ang's wife was a kidney recipient. And so it was this big swap. And so she really downplayed
Yeah, she essentially said that what I did was really inconsequential because she didn't have my kidney in her body. And then she said that her mother also was willing to be tested, which is a lie. Her mother never wanted to be tested. That was another lie. I mean, it's just crazy though that we live in a world here and where we think the one thing that this has taught me, and even since I've talked to Michael over the past few months and Frank and a lot of the other victims, that the world I thought I lived in is not the real world.
no.
I mean, I grew up naively, and God bless anyone that's never had to deal with the court system, because before I experienced this, I assumed, like so many other people do, oh yeah, well, the court system works for people and it's fair and it's just baloney. It's all about who's paying somebody off, or who knows the judge better. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Do a favor because, but
This is crazy. They can destroy your life, essentially. I mean, we've actually had people recommend that we leave the country, that
or get a divorce.
Or get a divorce. Yeah.
But the problem is, it doesn't matter if we get a divorce, because essentially the alimony award is the alimony award, and until it's changed in Connecticut, there's nothing going to change. So the interesting thing, though, we live in a state, Pennsylvania is attendance by the entirety. So, some states are 50-50. So this is actually everything that we own together is all 100% mine, all 100% his. So there's nothing they can really take. Like if he had a credit card that was like, he maxed out, they can't come put a lien on the house. They can't seize anything because but that's what essentially the court in Danbury, Connecticut is doing. They're punishing me and taking my money, and they're not letting me even have a say.
Yeah, the tenancy by entirities thing is interesting because it essentially declares that as long as a husband and wife, stay married, any property and or income that they jointly hold is considered to be 100% of each of the parties. So that means, that, like Hillary said, everything like this house that we have is 100% hers, but it's also 100% mine. But so that means if a creditor and or ex-spouse has a claim against just me, they legally, she legally can't. She can't.
Did put a lien on our house. Her attorney did put a lien, but it
really was just against me.
It's against you, but it's but there's nothing they can do about it.
They can't do it as long as we stay married. There's nothing they can do about it. So it's just but so the unfortunate, that's why the thing with people that are saying, oh, you could get a divorce, that wouldn't help, because see, they like I said earlier, they can't take the money. They literally can't take it. They're basically, and this is the real thing. This is what's interesting about this is something I didn't mention, but the lovely Randolph Richardson, he created, essentially what he did was he took a debt that was dischargeable in bankruptcy, and he turned it into alimony, which is punishable by incarceration. So essentially what he did was he created a situation where I face debtor's prison.
And even
something that's been outlawed since, I don't know, that was outlawed since the early 1800s.
Well, her attorney here literally admitted that Richardson turned that settlement debt into alimony so she could get the money. But the problem is when you're looking, and they've never asked her for finances. In fact, the first hearing with Carla Nascimento, she did not have a financial affidavit.
Yeah, she didn't have a financial affidavit or anything.
And she was just like, oh, it's okay, just have one next time. That was it. Like, I mean, she literally We know for a fact she spends a ton of money, different places, shops, goes to weddings, does all this stuff, but refuses to work. She was in disability. She was kicked out of disability because someone reported her. Because if you look on her Facebook page, which she's blocked all of us, she was posting things like, I just ran 2 miles, and she had pictures of, I'm gonna go get blasted, and I just shoveled, and
I
have
chopped
a
wood.
picture of her at a chainsaw.
I mean, this is somebody who's getting disability. She would post stuff like, just came back from working out for 2 hours. Now I'm going to chop some wood. I mean, she would post this on Facebook while she was, while she was getting disability. Well, it's no wonder she got kicked out of disability.
Also,
I
just
mean,
everybody treats Gus like he's the villain, it was kind
yeah,
of
I have
ironic
dirty hands. You
because
see,
we literally have he has video audio messages that he's kept. She was threatening to kill their real estate agent. She just her true colors were coming out.
I have a voicemail from her from many years ago where she literally says she's going to murder the realtor. Yeah, if she shows up again and does this walkthrough or something. Yeah, and then it's just I have the other thing where she's cursing.
And she's like, she basically called screaming at him saying, you need to put money in the account because there's bills coming through. Like, I'm sorry, like, we have a relationship, and he doesn't do everything. We both have our roles. I do certain things, he does certain things. And so it's
but you're capable. See, that's the thing. See, Hillary's capable of doing things like, oh my goodness, adulting, like paying bills. She's capable of doing. Whereas my ex-wife was just like, you got to do you do all that stuff. I don't know anything about it. I don't want to be bothered by it. I mean,
and unfortunately, after he was divorced, one of his friends broke some really horrible news that she was cheating on him the first year they were married.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, because he hadn't talked to them for a while, and he's like, yeah, she was cheating on him with a guy.
Yeah, with the it was actually her
it was the sick but slick thing. Basically, it was like she was telling Gus all the things that they did, and so it didn't seem suspicious. But
this guy what happened was she told me he was when we moved into our house in Paterson, New York in 2003, he was a guy she had dated before she met me, and apparently he was working for the cable company, and the call he was the guy that came to the house. and then yeah, he just so happened to be working for the cable company. But then after that, she started hanging out with him all the time. But she would use reverse psychology by telling, like, I would come home from work and she would say, oh, guess who stopped by today? Thomas. And we went to the diner and had lunch. Or, oh, guess who, Thomas stopped by today. We went to the mall and hung out for a little bit. She would always volunteer this stuff so that, because, so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I don't know that I like that my wife's hanging out with her ex-boyfriend, but she's telling me about it, so I guess it's innocent, because why would she? I never caught her in anything. It's not like I, if I was, if I saw her do it, with this guy, and then it would look, but she was always volunteering it,
but she admitted to doing it, though.
But then, yeah.
he was able to get her to admit that she did cheat on him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Connecticut's not one of those states.
Well, it doesn't. Yeah,
it didn't really
even matter. My attorney.
Well, his attorney at one point, because we were. I was part of like his support when he was dealing with all this, and one day she's like, "You're not getting angry with me, are you?" And it's like he literally had 2 attorneys against him because she didn't even look into where he got the money for this museum show. What should have happened was, she said, oh, he took a loan out. But the reality was her and him both took this line of credit out years before he did this. And this wasn't even the biggest investment that he did, that another investment that was bigger didn't turn out. So to say, oh, well, I don't want anything with the bad stuff, but if it was good, I want my share.
Essentially,
that's pretty much the whole
thing. The reward, none of the risk.
Yeah,
it was basically what she got, and yeah, it was Eva DeFranco misrepresented what happened in our divorce. I
And
mean, you know, she misrepresented what happened with, she said I took a loan out. I didn't take a loan out. We jointly, it was essentially like we had a credit card with a huge line of credit. And if you look in, you know, if you look up, like, what if you ever look up, like, you know, thinking about, you know, heading for divorce, the first thing that they tell you, if you ever Google that, the first thing they say is, do you have any cards, any credit cards jointly held with your spouse? If you do, cancel them immediately, because guess what? If your spouse goes off on a spending spree and then disappears to Tahiti, you're responsible for that money. You know, if you're jointly on the account, both of you are equally responsible. And that's why they say that.
His attorney also had him convinced that it's like, well, you better take the deal, because if you don't take this deal, it could be worse for you, because she's on disability.
Yeah.
Well, she has to now pay back the disability that she had, because she did get reported, because she technically shouldn't have been disabled. We have friends that have some major health issues and can't even get disability. And she, you know, got it quickly, but she's now paying back, I don't know how much, but, so it's just, it's like, we're at a point now, it's like, so his attorney, David Rosa, has put in a motion to reopen the alimony award. That was last month.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yesterday's news. Yeah,
Yes.
this is, in fact, I called Michael and Frank, and Michael may be doing another quick follow-up story as well. But I just found out that, so yeah, what's happening now is we are, because I lost the appeal and I did 2 motions for modification that were denied. So David said, well, what I think we need to do now is we need to go and put in a motion to reopen this judgment from July of 2020 that truly entered with this award. Well, we put forth the motion, and Trulia is no longer even, he's been out of Danbury for a couple of years now. And we filed this motion in May. And usually you file it, and within a couple of days it gets on the schedule. Well, weeks and weeks and weeks have gone by, and there's been no information, nothing. And then I find out yesterday, literally, David contacted me. He was just beside himself, because he said, Trulia, they've done, you know what they've done with this? They haven't scheduled it. They gave it to Trulia to review. Now, what do you think Trulia is going to do? Now this actually gives me the option.
May 19th, they put in motion to open judgment.
It was May 19th.
And June 8th. There was an order, hearing, and notice, and that is it.
Yeah,
and he has till July 31st to come up with this money down here.
But the thing about it is now, so what my attorney is going to do now is he's going to request a change of venue, which I've actually been asking to get out of Danbury. And but yeah, I mean, he couldn't believe it. I mean, he literally, you know, because honestly, and I like David, he's been a good attorney to me. But attorneys, they don't want to believe that there is, you know, all this corruption, and, you know, they're just trying to do their job and save their career and everything. But I mean, he pretty much is saying to me now, I don't blame you for feeling the way there's something going on here, because he even said this has never even happened to me. He's like, I don't know what to think about any of this.
On the court, it says order, hearing, and notice, June 8th. It is June 8th. It's June 22nd.
22nd, yeah.
So
I don't know why. Yeah, Trulia. And the bottom line is, what does Trulia have to do with it anymore? You know.
Well, and just going back a little bit, before all the alimony and all these things, they actually settled this case.
Yeah,
the case was settled, and his mom. So my mother-in-law is a little bit older. And she was going to give us the money to fix it. It was signed, sealed, and dealed, but her financial advisor talked her out of it.
Yes.
So we didn't have the money anymore, so we couldn't finish that deal.
That's important, because what Hillary means is one of the things, and if you look at the and you know, Michael's article talks about that they allege that I committed fraud and that I you know did certain actions. Well, there was a series of interrogatory questions that Attorney Richardson gave to me, And I had to explain, because there was properties that I purchased in 2014, our inn, being one of them. And I had to give answers. Well, I gave answers to their satisfaction, so much so that, as Hillary just stated, in April of 2018, we had reached an agreement for that last 106,000. We had reached an agreement that we would pay it off and the matter would have been closed. Basically, my mother was going to get a settlement from my father's wrongful death law, because my father died from mesothelioma 25 years ago, and my mother's been getting settlements over the years. And so she found out she was going to get a settlement that summer for about $70,000. So she pledged to give it to me, and then I was going to have to come up with the other 36, and it was over. And everybody signed off on it. It was, unfortunately, as Hillary just said, my mother's financial advisor talked her out of it, because he said, listen, Maria, you're 80 years old. It's probably not advisable. I know you want to help your son, but it's probably not advisable that you give him all this money. You need it for your old age. And, I can't really blame her or anything. But the reason that's important is because then in the subsequent hearings, in the hearing which before Trulia in December of 2019, in which he gave her this onerous alimony award, they talked about the fraud that I allegedly committed, and Trulia himself says that there is evidence based on the testimony of the witness. It's clear that I concealed large or massive sums of money. Now, I ask you this: if I had indeed concealed when I think of massive or substantial assets, that to me is several $100,000 or maybe $1 million or more. Now, if I had really concealed that much money, why would they have settled with me in 2018? They settled with me. And the other thing that's funny about that is, it's funny, like we said at the beginning, there's so many facets of this case. There's so many little snippets. But one of the things that Trulia says in his ruling is he doesn't even have the paper. There's no paper evidence. He gives his ruling based on the testimony of the witness, a witness who literally said, with witnesses, it's all about credibility. And this witness on the stand also said that, despite proving she had a net worth of $700,000-800,000, she said she didn't have money to put gas in her tank. She said that an account with her name on it was not her account. That's a credible witness. That's somebody that's going to basically, oh yeah, whatever. What else would you believe?
Well, her attorney also said, "Oh, I don't want to burden the court with more paperwork." So they never brought anything in. So everything was
there's nothing on the record. Yeah, if you look at this, there's nothing on the record. It's all based on the testimony of Tracy Sims
on December 5th.
So, and as you might be able to tell from I'm tired. This tires me out.
It is.
It's very draining.
Like the rest of the evening will be shot. And it's so.
And I have, we both have talked about this so long.
Well, we like I said, we go to therapy, and there was a point that we were drinking way too much, and it did cause problems between us. Which we have just said, you know what, this is enough. It's almost like you have to go into a business deal with no emotion. So like I've had to take everything out, like, because I'm being forced to pay to a woman, and all that money being taken away from my child. And they've been told multiple times in the last hearing, even Richardson was like, he heard it, he saw it, and he didn't say, yeah, you're right, because he knows that's my money. Like it's concrete evidence. It's not like even they gave him Gus this award and it's all on him and that's all his money. No, there was an error. Like it would be like if somebody deposited $1 million in your bank because they had one number off.
Yeah, you don't get to keep the money. You don't get to
keep the money because there's an error. They'll say, no, that was the wrong account. And so they take the money back and fix it. And so all we really want right now is we want the satisfaction of her proving that she does not need alimony. And then the court should decide how much, because how much have you paid her so far?
I've paid her $50,000. Yeah.
So, and it's not even just the financial,
But-
it
and
has
it's-
taken
and
a
it's-
toll on our kids. Our daughter's 26 and her son's 17, and she actually went up to court one time. And in fact, in the courtroom, Tracy was filming my daughter. I'm not
I don't
really
know
sure why
she was doing that,
but
yeah.
she's also well, right when we started getting together, we went up to Danbury, and we were in his car, and she somehow passed us. Okay.
Yeah,
And-
I took Hillary up to Danbury. I was like, I wanted to show you where I currently live.
And I
And,
heard her screaming and swearing, "Who the F is that in your car?" Blah, blah.
But-
It could have been a friend. It could have been, he has a sister. She has, I have a niece. I mean,
But what's funny is that meanwhile, this like I said, when we started, for years we had no relationship. I mean, literally, we were like roommates. I know she would come home during that
Flowers.
period. Yeah, she would come home with flowers sometimes during that period where we were roommates, 2008, 2009, 2000. I mean, we were essentially were roommates. I did my thing, she did her thing.
Well, at one point,
So
her mom said to him, "If you have a kid, you better be prepared to do all the work. She's not going to do anything."
Yeah, early on in our relationship, it's funny. Her mother actually said that about her. Yeah, I mean,
but yeah, like we said, it's a lot to take in. Do you have any questions?
Oh my gosh, that's so much to take in. And that's why it's important that you talk about this, because they do have a way of painting somebody who's innocent as being guilty. And that alone is exhausting, trying to prove your point over and over and over again, because people aren't aware that these court systems are corrupt, just like how you said you didn't realize until you went into it. And so the perception that people have is the same as yours was, where, oh, it has to be just. That's how the courts are. They're fair, they're just. The juries and judges, they get a lot of training to do things right. They don't understand that these systems, they're a business. They literally are trying to figure out the ways that they can best profit off the clients that walk through the door. You guys are a client. Everybody else that walks through is a client, and they're trying to figure out who can we milk out of, the party that's coming in, both sides. Who's going to pay up the most money? Who can we have the most opportunity to make the most money off of? And that's what the goal is. It's a racketeering system aimed at milking people for money so they can profit and make their salaries and do whatever else they do with all this money that they take from people. And they target the vulnerable, innocent parent because they know that person or husband, whatever, whoever's in court, they target the person that is the most vulnerable and most willing to fight, because they know that person will do anything that they can, and they'll exhaust their bank accounts just to, have some justice. And people don't realize that until too late. And then they say, "Oh my gosh, where'd all my money go?" Right. And it's like, "Oh, I just fell for this stupid racketeering thing." But again, you don't have a choice. They corner you. So it's like almost no matter what choice you make, it's a catch-22. Like you said, if you just stop paying something, they throw you in jail. If you try to talk about it, they slap you with a gag order. There's all these different ways that they can manipulate people into doing and giving the outcome that they want, which is you exhausting your bank account on them.
Well, we think that's what's going on down here for her asking for that deposition and all the tax returns, because it makes no sense. Why do you need my financial or our financial information if the judge has clearly stated multiple times?
Yeah.
I'm just enforcing this. But on top of it all, so I'm not sure if you're aware, June is also PTSD Awareness Month. So Gus has PTSD. When he was younger, he had a little issue in court, and you can divulge or not. But so her attorney down here, not only has she made fun of me because I did one of those petition things. We did a whole story.
She thought that
and
was
just
funny.
signing for support. She made fun of him. And so he is really not good in the courtroom. His anxiety, he saw a psychiatrist, he sees a therapist, he gets medication from his doctor. And they literally, the last court hearing up there, he asked to do a Zoom. And now here's the thing, what's funny about it is we're 5-6 hours away. Well, traffic, you never know. She's a half hour away from court. They granted her a Zoom hearing and denied his, expecting him to go up, which was funny because he had court here the day before. So he had to
Yeah.
have court here and then go up there. And they actually got rid of that hearing, and they moved on to do a motion to reopen the alimony award. But
Yeah.
it was like, really, you're not gonna, it's 5 hours away and all it was a resolution plan date. It wasn't a hearing or anything. It was just, and she made it very clear, the hearing here, she was not going to settle. She wasn't doing
No,
anything. So
There's no point in even
so
going
he would have been
there.
wasted 5 hours up plus 5 hours at gas, food. And yeah, we do okay, but we're not like, that's a lot of money. And so it's just like, the whole time it's like he's been fighting, because it's been hard for us, because all the things that they've said, he's got dirty hands, he's fraudulent, all these things. And it's like they're kind of like, the one thing I said the other day when we were talking about something, it's like two people are in a store, the till's open and the guy grabs $500. Well, the guy down the aisle, he sees him take a pack of gum. Well, the guy that just took $500 is like, look, he stole gum. He stole gum. She's almost like she's trying to point the finger at him, where she's really the one I mean, talk about contempt of court. She has said things in court that was shocking and just made no sense whatsoever. Even in her appeal, that some of the things she said were not accurate, and the people and the judges in the appeal didn't even address, like, what does this even mean? They never said a word about her appeal.
Yeah, I mean,
What happened?
What's it?
Oh, you're okay. Go ahead.
Sorry.
What's sad is that, there is, I don't know. I mean, it's,
and we wonder why is this happening? Why are we dealing with this? And it's like, I almost feel like I said, I have a mental health degree. I worked with kids with all kinds. I worked in a secure treatment unit with juvenile delinquents. Some of their case files are just outrageous, and some of them are because the court system.
the court, for some reason, what's sad is that the court doesn't understand. They treat me like the bad guy. They don't know the monster that she is. I mean,
Well, they don't even look. That's the problem, right? They're dissecting both of you, and they're not giving that same attention to her. They're not dissecting the inconsistencies on her end and trying to figure out her side. They're just ignoring it, pushing all that, and anything that you guys bring to the table, they're dissecting to the point where they're manipulating it, and it's really narcissistic how they're treating you.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It's like with this, you make a comment that, well, under oath, she said 3 or 4 times that it's not my account. And the judge didn't even say, well, whose account is it? Like, I mean, all I said was, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I even apologized. I said, I'm sorry. I must have been confused. And the judge called me a moron.
But he's like, can I just resume payments? I'm sorry, I made a mistake.
Yeah,
They're
like that was the other thing. That's
can't
another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. Like I said, again, there's so many things, there's so many elements. But you remember I told you this whole thing started in December of 2015. Well, within a few, I found out that I was supposed to be making monthly payments. Well, I got current, so I caught up all the payments, and then I said, listen, can I just have, as they say in golf, a mulligan on this? And I'll just I made a mistake. I'll just start paying every month like a good little boy, and everything will be fine. Nope, they didn't want to do that. They basically said, nope, now you got to pay it all. And I was like, I can't pay it all.
And Richardson's legal fees.
And his legal fees and
top of it
everything.
all.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah. Which ended up screwing, the irony of it is, I probably would have been able to pay Sims everything by January 20. If they had agreed in December, in December or January of December 2015, January 2016, if they had agreed to let me resume the payments, I probably would have been able to end the thing once, because as I stated earlier, my legal bills were in the 6 figures. So there's the money, the rest of the money that would have gone to Sims. If they had just allowed me to do that, she would have gotten her money, and this would have been over a long time ago. but they wouldn't.
The biggest problem is she's the one that wants to push this.
Yeah.
She's angry. She's bitter. She can't stand that he moved on and he's happy, has has a life. And it's like, this is all she has.
Yeah, that's what's so heartbreakingly sad about this is that there are people, and this is just, I went through, with the 15 months when she was on dialysis, I went to the unit. I saw the looks on those people's faces. Some of them knew they were probably going to die, never getting a kidney. Then there was others, maybe people that were a bit younger, that were hopeful that they would someday be free to get a kidney. Well, there are people every day. I think the waiting time now is 7 years for a cadaver kidney.
Mhm.
There is over 100,000. Last I checked, there was over 100,000 people on the list, and she got that kidney. She got her second lease on life, and this is what she has chosen to do. I mean, it's just beyond sad. It's
But the
it's
worst part is
heartbreakingly
the
sad.
courts are taking that and using
Yeah.
that to their advantage to do what they're doing. And it's just, like I said, at the end of the day, we just want to live our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
I just want to be left alone.
Fair enough.
We just don't want, and honestly, we have talked, as Hillary said earlier, we've gone back to church recently and we talked to our pastor and we've prayed for her, for my ex-wife. I mean, honestly, I just want her to leave us alone.
just find
I
something that makes her happy with life. Just
I
something.
really
whatever it is.
wish, I really genuinely wish that she could somehow recognize the gift and the blessing that she was given and wake up one day and say, oh my God, I have to do something with my life, something positive, something constructive. What is this nonsense?
What this is all doing is taking away from us helping other people. Like, my grandmother's 93 years old. And bless her heart, one day she said, if I had 110,000, I would give it to you.
Wow.
And it's like, we haven't been able to go up and see her. I mean, and so my grandfather, the one that passed away, he was a veteran in 2 wars, World War II and Korea. He had 4 discharge papers. He worked in the state penitentiary for years up there, very well known, just a wonderful man. I'm the only grandchild. My 2 kids, they just adored him. And my daughter, when he's out in and out calling, my daughter's following my grandmother around, making sure she's eating and taking care of her. I mean, it was a really hard day, losing two men that you just have on a pedestal. I mean, my dad and my grandfather, I just thought the world of them. And it was just like to be reminded constantly from the court, well, if Gus would have been there, there.
That was,
And it's like, it caused actually a few fights, this whole thing. It's just like, when is this going to end? Like, it's just, we have no peace. And I can't say we don't have peace. We finally have been able to say, you know what, we're going to put this in a box. We're compartmentalizing this situation and putting it away. We didn't, we don't talk about it. Like, we're talking about it now,
we have
but
good days and bad days. I mean, we've tried to make a concerted effort to not, I mean, I'll be honest, it's for the longest time. And there's even still some days when it's front and center all day long in our life. But because the frustrating thing about this is,
we don't know what to do.
I've always been, you always hear the saying about people say, you should leave your past in your past. Well, my problem is my past punches me in the nose every so often. There's been times where we've had maybe a nice day. We went out, had lunch, spent a couple of enjoyable hours, come home in a good mood, only to find a notice from court in the mailbox. I mean,
and it happened the day before his birthday.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's talk about crappy timing. I found out the day before my birthday that my appeal was denied. I mean, it's just this person. The problem is she just doesn't have anything better to do with her life.
And the court's taking advantage.
And the court just lets her do whatever she wants. And I just don't know. I mean, my hope in all this, I've talked to Frank and, then Mike did my story and now we're talking to you. I just hope that this eventually becomes some kind of a national news story, because I think so many people will be just out. I mean, just the response that we got from Frank's story. I mean, all the people that were, I mean, how could you, you know, I saved her life. She's literally walking the earth today because of what I did. What kind of a person could do that? You know, what kind of a monster would you have to be to do that? I mean, that's just, it's just heinous. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's like, I just think that
she's very miserable, and this is all she has. And it's like, yeah, we've never actually met, which is probably not a bad thing. Because he had a little red flag the day before he got married. So they didn't allow children at their wedding, and his sister just re-asked. His sister has 2 children. They were younger when the wedding was supposed to be, or when it was.
I got married to my
And
ex.
so
in
she literally
2002.
just asked, "Hey, would you like reconsider? It's just really hard because I'm in the wedding and this and that." She attacked her physically.
Yeah, my ex-wife attacked my sister the night before our wedding. It was like a Jerry Springer episode. It was pretty awful.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
but right now,
And-
so our current situation is sometimes you just have to take a breath because it's just so overwhelming.
No, but
We have
what-
been married 9 years, and
7 years.
7 years it's been, and I think I told Mike, we have a strong relationship.
Yeah.
And if we didn't, I don't know how, because I know what kind of man he is, and it's not what the courts are saying or she's saying. I mean, he's become the father of both, our kids. And in fact, my daughter calls him first now when she has to talk about something, and I'm like, what? It's not a bad thing. It's just sometimes I'm like, really?
Sure.
But like, they've been, he's been in their life for 11 years with some capacity, like even when we were just getting to know each other.
Yeah.
Like when I watched him with my kids, I went, yeah, he's a winner. Like I had the cutest picture of him when our son's 7 years old, and he's sitting there teaching him how to play guitar. And so, but we're blessed that my ex and I have a great co-parenting relationship. In fact, like all the stuff you get to do, when your kids go into college, all the get acquainted, they've come in, we get together, like even graduation, like we sat together, they came over and we had a nice little thing afterwards. And I'm like, I'm so grateful. In fact, the one time we went away and my ex literally took vacation days and said, listen, you guys need to go do something. Go get away, even if it's just going out and camping. So and because they know what we're going through. So it's just been, thankfully, our families have been and our friends, oh my gosh, like just have been so supportive. And it's like, I actually have someone, we did the GoFundMe, gave us $20. He's in dialysis.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And it's like,
a friend of ours who's actually on the waiting list
On the
for
waiting
a
list for
kidney.
kidney,
He actually, he gave us, and that just breaks my heart, because this is a guy, and this again, he's a guy, he's got a family,
yeah.
he's a really good guy, and he's right now waiting for a kidney. I mean, I just, it's, I just, all I can say is, we hope that
We hope the story breaks and like
more and
someone
more
says,
people-
this is ridiculous. In fact, the reason we're talking to you is because there was a professor at Gettysburg College, and we met her during one of the events, and she's
last
like,
fall,
why don't you try doing finding an investigative reporter? And we're like, oh, didn't even think of that.
Yeah, 'cause
So she helped us kind of like get where we're at, and I'm hoping that somebody says, what is this? Or even the court, because was it Frank or Mike? One of them said they don't, when they hear stuff, they don't really want that to get
like
bigger
like
than
Frank's,
Sure. Yeah.
and
But there's so many other stories of families.
we've
Oh
met,
my gosh.
we've met several people.
I feel like almost like we're here because we want to help them too. Like it's not
Oh,
just
yeah.
about us. It's like exposing, I mean,
Yeah, I've got
the Child Protective Services and all. There's so many stories. We've talked to so many families that are just, ours ours is not the typical divorce, children, custody thing. It's weird and almost even worse because there's a child being affected that, and I'm being forced to pay money to someone I wasn't married to. So it's like, I mean, but just the way he's been treated is broken my heart because he is a good person.
100%. Yeah. And it's like, you're spending, what's going on, and you have to spend all this time defending yourself from things that aren't true about you, which is so exhausting. And like I said, because people have this perception that, well, if the court dictated something's this way, then it must be so.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Oh yeah.
you have to explain this whole thing, to some capacity or an overview of it to keep, it's like just rehashing trauma over and over and over and over and over again, continually trying to prove, that your points when the courts are just focused on the opposite side. It's like you don't have a voice.
And it's just mentally exhausting. Like there's so many things we want to do. And sometimes by the end of the day, like if we do like a thing like this, by the time we get off, we're done. We're so exhausted and just
I've
physically
had to
mentally drained.
explain this, I've just
To nauseam.
it's just,
And it makes me wonder what else has been going on in these courts for all these years that,
oh, yeah.
people have like, it's my turn now to get to win. And everybody's like, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. And I just feel like up in Connecticut, that's what's happening. But down here, this makes no sense because in
So
fact,
yeah.
we've been talking to the local newspaper. And so our son, he was a camera intern for a movie. He was in the paper 5 times. So the lady that Gus interviewed with the newspaper knows Ethan, got to know him, loves him. It's just he's such a sweet kid. And
I told her, I said, his college now is potentially being jeopardized.
And she was,
because I have to pay this person because Judge Simpson here is forcing me to pay this person who doesn't need the money. Meanwhile, our son needs the money to go to college.
Yeah.
This person doesn't need the money.
They'll be doing a story in the newspaper down here.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's a smaller newspaper and they're short staffed. So she's like, we're going to get to it, but she's like, there's a bias here. And she goes, I really like Ethan, and this is not fair.
Yeah,
like, what did he do? Why is he being, it's like, he's not part of this. I'm not part of this, but it's like, and we've like said, hey, look, that's not all his money, but they've never even acknowledged that I exist when it comes to our business together. They've never said, oh, well, what about, your wife's money or whatever. And it's like, so they're basically told me I have no say. I would have to get an attorney. I would have to be impleaded. So I become a third party, but that doesn't even guarantee they would allow it. So I just have to sit back and be quiet and just, here's my $1,000 every month.
See, at the end of the day, you could say, and there might be people, there might be people that are watching this, that have read Mike's article and Frank's article, and they might say, well, the law is the law, and the courts have to do. Sometimes it doesn't make everybody happy, but all that aside, there still is no explanation as to how is it that those 2 errors, because that's the whole case.
Yeah.
They have never been commented on. It's not like they even tried to explain. Honestly, I would have more respect if they at least tried to BS their way out of explaining it.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't even do that. They acted like that they were never even presented. It's like there is a smoking gun that they're acting like it doesn't exist. There is no explanation, because if you read the transcript of the hearing that I missed in December of 2019, the reason why Trulia gave her that award was because Richardson proved, based on incorrect information, that I could do it. Well, and it was and we went back and proved that there were 2 massive errors, and they were not even commented on. How is that possible?
It's almost like if him and I worked at the same store and he owed money somewhere and they're like, oh, they both work at the same store, we can take money from both of us. No, they can't legally do that. That's not how it works. They can't take money from me, but you work together. But essentially, in all intents and purposes, they are literally doing that.
Well,
They're not even allowing me to argue it, or I mean, so
well, it's been frustrating for her. So for over the years, I mean, you know how many times she said, you know, I have no rights. I'm just collateral damage. You know, they just want my money and want me to shut up. You know, and I have a kid that has, you know, I have a son that's going to college. You know, I can't help my daughter, and instead I have to give this woman who I wasn't married to, I have to give her all this money.
and it's funny, they think we have all this money. No. If I had all this money, currently my refrigerator leaks every day. I have a towel shoved under it.
Yeah.
Or there's so many things that are need fixed, but we don't have the money to do
I mean,
it.
our business, you know, our business, we have a
Oh.
small historic inn. We've needed to paint it for 3 years. We had money
Set
earmarked
aside.
for painting last year, but I had to give it to Sims. You know, I mean,
And then we get reviews going, oh, well, they should take care of their inn. I'm like, it's like it almost is putting Gus into a debtor's prison.
yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
It's you just can't. It's like
So that,
it's like
yeah,
I don't have the money. We don't care. Like it's
because Richardson, you know, he turned the debt in. It was discharged in bankruptcy. He turned that into alimony. And
we have
alimony,
it on record that her attorney down here.
and her
admitted he did
attorney
it.
even admitted that's what he did.
So, but no, I have to say I appreciate you having us on, and I'm sure you're just like, oh my gosh,
This is, yeah, this is,
and I'm sure there's stuff we're missing. It's just so much information, and it's like you go through it and you go, oh, I forgot this and I forgot this, and it's not even. Some days we just aren't even living. Like we're just trying to figure out how do we fix this, and it's like the other day he's like, I don't know what else to do. Like we're just at that point. Like when David said about the Trolley is now reviewing.
Well, when he told me that yesterday, I couldn't believe it. I was like,
I'm
are
like,
you kidding?
I'm unfortunately, and I may be wrong, but I have this horrible feeling that he's going to deny it. And then,
Well, what's going to happen then is that we're going to, you know, David is writing a letter now to the administrative judge, and he's basically requesting like I said, a venue change, which is absolutely warranted, you know, in light of what's going on here. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, do you guys have a GoFundMe or a donation site? Could you talk about
we
that?
really don't. The problem is we just hate taking other people's money because everybody's dealing with something in life, and it's
I
like
know.
it breaks my heart when we have some friends that have helped us. In fact, at one point, our friend, he would give the shirt off his back. We had properties, but we had no money, and he
Yeah.
literally gave us $100, and he had maybe 200.
we
Like
had
that's it. But we do have a GoFundMe. I don't.
the reason we did
just
the
want
GoFundMe.
support.
There's always a lot of people that watch my show. They might not be able to contribute a lot, but a lot of people, like, the people that watch my show, like, they don't like donating to like nonprofits and stuff. Like, they want to give, if they have $5, like, they'd rather give it to you, you know? So
Well, you know, the thing is, the GoFundMe, when we posted it, it was really, I mean, obviously $110,000 is a ridiculous sum of money. I know nobody's gonna be able to but we did it to partially even illustrate the absurdity of this.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
it's
that's like buying a house.
you know,
I mean,
it's
it
like-
literally is like buying a house. In fact, when we bought our house 9 years ago, almost 9 November, it was 150,000.
Yes.
I mean, even if it's like someone's like, don't you have a house and a business? And I'm like, if I sell my house, then I have nowhere to live. If I sell my business, I don't make income.
But see what's what's ridiculous about this is
And I'm in bankruptcy.
let's assume that we did say, okay, we'll sell our business so we can get on with the $110,000. But then we'd have no business, no means to earn money to keep paying the $2,000 a month.
But on top of it all, we couldn't because of the bankruptcy.
Yeah, we couldn't anyways. Yeah, because of the
So
bankruptcy.
that's why it's like putting us into a corner. It's like, do I pay you or do I pay my bills? Because sometimes we're almost at a point we have to make a choice. So
well, that's the you know, that's the other thing. It just really sucks is that our bank account is always scraping the bottom. I mean, we're always scraping the bottom, and it's just. And now we're in our busy season. A few months ago, because I was having to pay this, and like I said, I've been getting help, But I mean, I was going in the negative several times
Mhm.
because I just didn't have enough money, and I had to beg my bank to give back the charge, because they hit you with a nasty. My bank does $37 courtesy fee if they cover a bounce check. So I mean, there was about 3 or 4 times in the past couple of months that our bank account went into the negative because of this.
I'm so sorry that you guys have had to go through this. This is like, I've covered a bunch of stories with Mike, and I've had parents that have come on. I've covered a lot of different court cases. And this one's definitely, it's very unique, but it really does showcase, all the different angles of corruption that happen in these systems. So I appreciate you guys coming on, and I'm so sorry that you've had to deal with this for so long, that your voices aren't being heard, especially, not even being able to have a say against the person that you're fighting in court. It's like they're only over analyzing you, and I'm sorry about that too, because the other side absolutely should be getting looked at. And I think if it was, it would be very obvious,
Oh, yeah.
who should be on the side of being the actual victim in this, and it would be you guys. And instead they're looking at you guys like the criminal, or treating you guys that way because they know that they can get more money out of you than her, and it's really discouraging and sad. So I appreciate you guys coming on, and I know that this is so hard to talk about this stuff. It's traumatizing. Like, these stories cause PTSD, going through this. It's that fight or flight, that that fear every single day. Like, you can't really think about the past, you can't really think about the future. Like, you have to think about surviving this moment in this day, and it's traumatizing, it's difficult, stressful, and you guys haven't even gotten to enjoy a beautiful marriage and relationship without all these hurdles that you've had to go through. You guys met and fell in love, and you guys obviously have such a strong relationship, and it's so sad that you haven't even gotten to have that peace and like go on vacations and live life like a normal family. Instead, it's like you're living in the present and just trying to survive every day, and you
Every
both
day.
have that.
Every day we're just like, now what's going, I mean, and we've tried not to do this, but it's like,
So hard not to.
it is very hard. And I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but like, when I get really anxious and nervous, my face is probably like red on this side. And it's just, there's been so much, stress and anxiety, and just, I just hope somebody sees this and says, hold on, I know people that can talk to these people. And
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, who do we go to? The FBI? Like, we're trying to call Johnny Depp's attorneys,
yeah.
because
Last
of the
summer when
whole thing with Amber Heard and all that stuff. And it's like, I mean,
because I'm an abused I was an abused husband in this.
There was a lot of mental abuse. Like,
Oh,
he couldn't even go home at night and turn the microwave on without getting screamed at.
yeah.
Like,
I
just
mean,
stuff like that. And it's just like,
literally, it's funny whenever I would see my ex when I was married, and I would see she was calling me on my phone, I would brace for impact because I didn't know what I was going to get.
so I
It
have
was
to end
just
this with a funny story. It's funny to us. So we have a dog. It was his dog before, and he was part of a lab train. So he drove her from point A to point B. She's from Kentucky. She was hit by a car, had parvo. He went back and adopted her. So one day Tracy called him and said, "We're getting rid of Charity." That's the dog's name. And he goes, "Why?" And she goes, "She looked at me and said, F you." And he's at work, okay, mind you. And he goes, "You know what? I'm done with this conversation." So we now have Charity. She's 13 years old. She's
Yeah.
a sweet girl. She wasn't even potty trained. She let
Yeah.
her pee all over the carpet. And
when I had her with my ex couldn't be
not.
bothered to put her out, so she just peed
But-
on the carpet. And
but she's got a
whatever.
wonderful life now.
Yeah.
I mean, she's our couch potato.
Yeah.
And so it's just funny because it's like, if people, you heard the saying sick but slick.
Oh, that's what she is. Yeah.
She's a sick but slick. It's like, all very nice, and then like, she'll have a friend of the week. Like, we had an investigator go in, and she's like, "Oh, we're going to a wedding. I'm going to a wedding." And she was saying all these things. But what's even worse, who has that interviewed? Is it
No, I still have it.
Well, anyway, she's very racist.
Oh yeah.
Some of the stuff she said, it's like,
She
It's
made a
like-
comment about this guy that owned a piece of property adjacent to her. He was of Egyptian descent, and she called him Osama bin Laden. And then she made a comment that she laughed that he
croaked.
croaked.
And
yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna sue that bitch of
Yeah.
his wife. And like within that sentence, like,
Actually, Michael, you can watch the
yeah,
video.
you can watch.
You can
yeah.
watch the video. Michael posted it.
Yeah. So that kind of, and it's like, you know, I've improved myself as a person. Like there's things that I've done since we've met. Like I'm, you know, she's the same person. Like
Oh
she
my
has not
God.
changed.
When I watched
whatsoever.
when I watched that video, it was like it was a time warp from like 2008. It was bizarre.
But you have to
you
watch
should check it out.
and let us know what you
Yeah.
think. But no, like I said, we really appreciate, you know, we really just want at this point to get the word out and have this fixed. And if we can help other people, because
Yeah.
you know, it's not just about us. You know, we've talked to so many parents that the one of our friends that we become friends with hasn't seen his kid in 4 years.
Yeah,
Kids in
one of the
place.
other victims that we've talked to.
And
yeah.
it's like, we don't have that situation, but it's the same court and it's the same family court. And it's like, we keep saying, why are we still fighting this? I'm like, there's a reason. I don't know what it is yet. And it's
Yeah.
maybe we can help ourselves and maybe help some other families. Like, you know, we're not like her.
No.
Sorry. I try to be positive, and it's just, you know, it's just it's hard sometimes, you know, and it's like we just want to live our life. Like you said,
Yep.
we just want to not have that cloud over our head all the time. Like, you know, and my grandmother, bless her heart, she made a joke of it, trying to make me feel better. He goes, well, at least he'll get 3 meals a day in jail. Because she's like, I don't know what else to say.
Right. Sometimes all you can do is just laugh.
Well, and we've tried to make the best of things, but sometimes it's like, when will this end? Like, when will we just get some peace? So.
Absolutely. Do you want to let people know where they can connect with you, whether it's your GoFundMe or where you guys are at online, social media?
Yeah, I mean, it's Gus Zucco or Hillary Styer. We're on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. Like you said, LinkedIn. There is you can even contact Michael Volpe or Frank Parlato. They're the the guys that did the other stories for us. Yeah, I mean, definitely if anybody has any idea of how they can help, my dream was to obviously I'm donating, I'm a living kidney donor. And one of the reasons that I was hoping, to get media attention was I was hoping that maybe somebody whose life, and I hate to put it this way, but somebody of means, whose life had been greatly affected by organ transplantation, maybe his aunt or his mother, somebody was saved by her, would hear my story and be like, oh my God, let me help this family.
It's
Let
not
me
even
do something.
like money wise. It's
Yeah.
somebody just more
Somebody that
prominent,
can just
say that has more power, more pull, because we live in Gettysburg. We have an inn where we do acting, but we're nobody, famous or big. And it's like,
I just don't think, this wouldn't be happening to us if we had, if we had some power, if we had some pull. I mean, this is just, we're getting slapped around because, we can't fight back. That's the problem. I mean, yeah, if I had money, I could go plunk down $100,000 for a top lawyer somewhere. You know what I mean? Like the rich and famous do. I mean,
but like we're just at a point, it's like, like I said, they're kind of pushing us into a corner saying, pay it or else. And I'm like, but we don't have it. Like, so it's like, how do you pay if you don't have it? We don't care. So,
yeah.
But anyway, well, hopefully somebody will hear this and maybe have some, somebody that they know or something. So.
And just understand too, it's like you said, you're speaking on behalf of so many families that don't get the opportunity or maybe don't know that they can have a voice by going on a podcast or doing something. And you're also helping people learn the system. So you're helping prevent other families from ever going through this, and it sucks that you guys have to go through it and be, the face of that, because you don't deserve it. But just know that you're doing so much good by taking this initiative and speaking out and educating and bringing awareness to this. And I pray that people step up and start caring, because there are far too many of these stories out there with family court, with criminal court. There's so much injustice in these quote unquote justice systems. And people are so brainwashed to think otherwise, just because that's what we've learned our whole life, that, you know, right from all the crime, you know, shows that you can watch on TV to movies, it's just drilled into our head that courts are good and that it's all about justice, and it's really not, you know. And so you guys are also helping to change that narrative and to prove that to people and to help show them the dark side of the court system. So I just want to thank you guys for coming on here and for sharing. And if there's any other links that you didn't go over, feel free to send to me. I'll make an extensive list in the show notes of the articles that you guys have been featured in, both Frank and Mike's. I'll go ahead and post all your social media links, your GoFundMe. And if there's anything else that you want me to post, I'll put it below so people can just go literally click on it. It'll light up like a hyperlink and people can just go click, you know. And I know you guys you're not doing this for donations. You're not looking for somebody to just pay your way. But at the same time, I think it's so noble when people do step up and decide to help, you know, like we can all do our little part in this, and there's always opportunities to help people. There's, you know, in so many ways, there's so many people that do go donate to nonprofits and things like that. And I always ask the people that listen to podcasts to just go directly to the source. If you have a few extra dollars, if you have a lot of money, if you have a resource, you know, go right to the source. I love whenever people do that, because then it allows the guests to be able to continue doing what they're doing. You know, you guys deserve some breathing room to where you're not having all these different things floating over your head and carrying on your shoulders, you know. And if society can help pick up some of that slack that the court systems aren't, you know, then that's how we become more powerful. We all have to come together and fight this together. You know, it's not fair that you two are facing this massive army of, you know, all these different people in power, and you guys don't have that same pull, and you're far outnumbered. You know, like we all need to come and stand beside you and behind you and back you at the very least, you know, and share things like this and bring awareness and listen to it, you know. So I appreciate you guys coming on here. I know it takes a lot of courage. It's exhausting, it's draining, it's stressful, it's traumatizing. And I ask anybody listening, please contact them. If you have a resource, contact them just to show support. You know, the more eyes we have too on these stories, even if we can't donate, even if it's not something that, you know, we can physically take part in, just having eyes, you know, if they end up getting big followers, if Gus ends up getting a ton of followers on Facebook who are supporting him, then all of a sudden the numbers grow around him too, and he starts to become more powerful just through having support. You know, sometimes it can be as easy as just going and following on LinkedIn or social media and just showing the opposition that, hey, we have eyes on Gus and this family, and we're standing next to them. You know, those things are so powerful. So thank you guys so much for coming on. Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
Thank you for finally letting me have a voice. Might not have it in court, but Frank and you and Mike is finally letting me say my side of the story, because I mean it feels like I just, you know, and I have previous issues with self-esteem, so it only adds to all of that. It's like, well, I guess I don't count, but I do count, and I finally stopped saying that to myself, because, you know, garbage in, garbage out. Either regardless if it's food or what you put in your head, like I'm a bad person. No, I'm not. No. Gus is not a bad person. Gus did nothing wrong. In fact, he did so many amazing things for someone that just didn't appreciate it. I do. So I hope that matters a little bit.
And I do, and we all do listening. Like, you're a hero, Gus. What you did is amazing. Like, it brings tears to my eyes to think about that decision. You know, like, I don't know many people who would step up and do that for somebody that they care about, you know, and it's amazing that you stepped up and did that. And I'm so sorry that you weren't appreciated the way that you should have been, and that you've been villainized for doing so much good. You know, you guys deserve all the justice in the world. And I pray, like I said, I hope that there's people on the other side that can, you know, reach out and have some way that they can contribute and help you guys.
Well, I appreciate what he did. So, and so is our.
I know, you're amazing. What a support you've been. I always say spouses are the unsung heroes in these circumstances. You know, you're not given a voice, and you're oftentimes taking on secondary PTSD going through this stuff with your spouse, you know, and to not have a voice, to not be able to talk, and to not get your time like that, it's absolutely unacceptable. and you deserve that. And I'm so happy that you came on and shared. You're so eloquent. Your story matters, and you matter. You know, you're fighting a narcissistic system that wants you to think that you don't matter, and that's not the case.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I appreciate you guys coming on. And like I said, for everybody listening, I will go ahead and link everything below. So please go support. It means the world to me whenever you guys support these guests. You know, I don't feature guests that are given news segments and platforms and, you know, tons of publicity. Like these are stories that are actively trying to be silenced. Like they don't want Gus to have a voice. They don't want Hillary to have a voice. You know, they want them to just suffer and to bleed their bank accounts dry and, you know, to get away with corruption and not have anybody know about it. So we need to get loud too and stand by the people that are doing good and support them. So please go support them, you guys. I'll have everything linked below, no matter what platform you're on. Just go ahead and click. Even if it's just a follow, even if you can't donate, just go follow them on social media, you know, help get their numbers up and share their posts that they're posting about. So thank you so much, you two, for coming on. And everybody listening, thank you so much for sticking around and listening and supporting. It means the world to me. And God bless you. And we will see you next week.